Have you ever seen something so wrong it made your blood boil? Picture this. A woman named Laya tied to stakes in the Arizona dirt, her wrists bleeding through the ropes. Just 20 feet away, men are haggling over horses like she doesn't even exist. She's been out there since sunrise. Punishment for trying to escape a contract she never truly signed. Then a stranger rides in. His name is Caleb. He came to buy a horse, but what he sees changes everything. What happens next? He makes a choice that will cost him his entire fortune. $400, every penny he has. But here's the twist nobody saw coming. Leia can write. And when she signs her name in perfect, elegant handwriting, the man who tortured her turns white as a ghost. Stay with me, because this story is about to take turns you will never see coming. This story proves one powerful truth. Freedom is not given. It is claimed. Sometimes the system that tries to own you becomes the very tool you use to set yourself free. This is for every woman who has ever felt trapped by circumstances, by bad contracts, by people who saw her as property instead of a person. Your past does not define your future. The right people will fight for you. And sometimes the bravest thing you can do is let them. If this story touched something in your heart, hit that like button. Drop a comment and tell me, have you ever had someone fight for you when you couldn't fight for yourself? Share this with a friend who needs to hear it today. And if you're new here, subscribe and hit the bell so you never miss another story that reminds you just how strong you really are. The Arizona Territory was a hard place that broke weak men, and Caleb Rohr was not weak. He was 3 days' ride from his ranch, looking over a sorry excuse for a trading post run by a man named Silas Crowley. The place was a collection of warped boards and rotten canvas, but Crowley had a magnificent black stallion Caleb needed for his cattle drive. Without that horse, he risked losing everything he had worked for. His men were counting on him. The stallion stood proud in the corral. It was a perfect animal, strong and smart. As Caleb swung down from his horse, Crowley slithered out from the shade. He was a slick, greasy man with a smile that held no warmth. "A real beauty, isn't he?" Crowley said. "He is all right," Caleb replied, careful not to sound too eager. "An eager man pays a higher price." Crowley named a price of $300, a steep sum. They began the familiar dance of negotiation. Caleb countered with $200. As they haggled, Caleb's eyes drifted past Crowley. He saw a woman, staked to the ground like some kind of twisted sacrifice. Her dress was ruined, her hair was a mess, but what stopped Caleb's heart were her wrists. They were rubbed raw and bleeding from the ropes. "What in God's name is that?" Caleb asked, his voice low and dangerous. Crowley just waved a hand. "Indentured servant. She owes me a debt, and she tried to run." Caleb felt a hot anger rise in him. He had seen cruelty before, but this was different. This was casual, public, and profoundly wrong. "How long has she been out there?" he demanded. "Since sunrise," Crowley said, as if talking about the weather. "Had to make an example of her." Caleb's jaw was tight. Territory law does not make it right. Crowley's grin faded. "Friend, morality does not pay the bills out here. She owes what she owes." Caleb turned away from the horse. His mission was forgotten. "I want to see her papers." Crowley studied him for a moment, then went inside. Caleb walked closer to the woman. She did not look up when his shadow fell over her, but he could feel her fear. "Ma'am," he said softly, "my name is Caleb. I will not hurt you." A dry, bitter sound came from her throat. She had heard those words before. He crouched down. "What is your name?" She finally looked up. Her eyes were hazel and they held no hope at all. But they were intelligent. She was reading him, trying to see if he was just another monster. "My name is Laya," she whispered, her voice cracked from thirst. Crowley returned, holding a stack of official-looking papers. "Leia Hart," he read aloud. "Indentured for 7 years. 4 years left to serve." He handed the contract to Caleb. It was a legal trap, filled with fees and penalties designed so she could never be free. At the bottom was a shaky X where her signature should be. "She cannot read," Caleb stated. "Does not matter. Her mark is legal." Caleb looked from the fraudulent paper to the woman tied in the dirt. He had come for a horse. His ranch, his men, his future depended on it. The smart thing to do was to buy the stallion and ride away. But Caleb knew the choices that defined a man were rarely the smart ones. "How much?" he asked. Crowley's eyes lit up with greed. "For her? To buy out the contract?" He pretended to do some math. $500. It was an impossible price. It was every cent Caleb had and more. It would ruin him. Leah stared at him, her eyes wide. She expected him to refuse. Everyone always refused. But as Caleb looked at her, he made a decision. He pulled out his purse. "Fine," he said, "but she signs the bill of sale herself." Crowley laughed and untied one of Leah's hands. He gave her the pen and paper. Leah looked at Caleb, and for the first time a flicker of something other than despair was in her eyes. Then, with a steady hand, she signed her full name in perfect, elegant handwriting. The silence was deafening. The shaky X on the first contract was an obvious forgery. Crowley's face turned white. He had not just been cruel, he had broken the law. "This contract is fraud," Caleb said, his voice like ice. "I am taking the woman, and as payment for your crime, I am taking the horse, too." Before Crowley could move, Caleb helped Leah to her feet and onto his horse. They rode out of that awful place, leaving the swindler to face justice on his own. They did not look back, riding toward a new morning, free and together. Her words were a quiet breath, but they landed like a strike of lightning. Both men stared at her. Crowley spoke first. "What?" Leah's gaze was fixed on Caleb. "You need a horse, but you also need hands for the drive. I can ride, I can rope, I can cook on a fire and treat a man's wounds." Her voice grew stronger with every word. "Take me instead of the stallion. Whatever his price, make it mine. I will work until the debt is paid. I swear to God I will not run." Crowley started to protest. "Now hold on." Leah cut him off, her eyes never leaving Caleb's. "You already got your value from me. 3 years of unpaid work. We both know I will not survive another 4 years of your fees. So take this deal before you get nothing at all." Crowley's face turned red. Caleb was already weighing the situation, not the money. That was simple. He was weighing the right and wrong of it, the kind of choice that defines a man. He thought of his mother, worked into an early grave. He thought of his sister, sold into a marriage like she was livestock. He thought about the frontier women traded like property, their lives just items on a ledger. Then he thought about the man he wanted to be. 400, he said. Crowley's jaw dropped. "I said 5. 400, Caleb said again, his voice now hard as iron. "For the contract, all her papers, and a full release. You get cash in your hand today. I get a human being who has been treated worse than an animal. And you get to walk away." The insult was sharp and clear. Crowley's hand twitched. 400 was a fortune. More than he had made from Leah's years of labor. 450, he blustered. 400, Caleb said, his voice flat. "Or I ride out of here, and you are left with a woman who will die before she works for you another day. It is your choice." Leah stood perfectly still, shaking from the inside out. Her entire future was being decided by 2 men's pride. Crowley spat on the ground. "Fine. 400, but I want it in coin, not paper. And we do this by the book, with a bill of sale and witnesses." Agreed. 20 minutes later, Caleb was $400 poorer, holding a stack of papers. Every document with Leah's name, every contract, every debt record. Crowley had kept careful track. Paper was his weapon in a land where the law was slow. They signed the final document with a man named Dutch as their witness. When it was done, Crowley counted the coins twice. "Pleasure doing business with you," he said. But he did not offer his hand. "I would say the same," Caleb replied, "but I do not lie." He folded the papers into his saddlebag. Then he walked over to Laya, who was still on her knees in the dirt. He pulled out his knife. She flinched away from the blade. "Easy," he said softly. "Just the ropes." The ropes fell away. Her arms dropped and she gasped in pain. Caleb caught her before she hit the ground. "Steady now." She immediately pulled away from his touch and forced herself to stand on trembling legs. She had her pride even now. "Can you ride?" he asked. She just nodded. "My horse can carry us both for a while." "I meant what I said," she said, her voice fierce. "I will work. I will earn back every single penny." Caleb looked at her then and saw a woman who was not broken. She was sharpened by her hardship, made strong in the way only survivors are. "We will talk about that later," he said. "Right now, you need water and food, and we need to get away from this place." He turned for his horse, but her voice stopped him. "Why?" Caleb paused. "Why did you do it?" she asked. Her eyes searched his, looking for the trick. "You do not know me. I could be a thief. I could run away. So why did you spend $400 on me?" Caleb thought for a moment while he checked his saddle. The truth was a long story made of memories and beliefs. It was made from what his mother taught him and what his sister endured. But here, in this dusty yard, the truth was much simpler. "Because I could," he finally said. "And because if I did not, I would spend the rest of my life wondering if I was brave enough when it mattered." He swung into the saddle and offered her his hand. After a long moment, Laya took it. He pulled her up behind him. She settled on the horse, her hands gripping his belt instead of his shoulders, keeping her distance. "Hold on," he said. He turned his horse south and rode away, not looking back. As they rode, he felt Laya's breathing become steady. Her hands slowly relaxed on his belt. After the first mile, he felt her forehead rest against his back for just a second. When the sun began to set, Caleb found a place to camp for the night. It was a hollow in the land protected by scrub brush. Laya slid from the horse before he could help her legs weak from the long ride. She nearly fell, but forced herself to stand tall. She would not show any weakness. Not now. Caleb said nothing about her stumble. He simply tied the horse and began to unpack their supplies. He moved with a quiet skill that showed he had made camp like this 1,000 times before. Laya watched him, trying to figure him out. He looked about 35, maybe 40. A tall, broad-shouldered man built from hard work, not from fighting. The sun and wind had etched lines around his eyes. He had dark hair, graying at the temples, and his hands moved with a quiet confidence. "Sit down, girl," he said, not even looking at her. It wasn't a command, but it wasn't a question either. Laya bristled at the tone, but she was too tired and hurt to argue. She sat. In silence, Caleb built a small fire. He brought out a canteen and a cloth, wetting it for her. "For your wrists." She took it, hissing as the cool water touched the raw rope burns. He then offered a small tin of salve. "My sister makes it," was all he said. "Good for burns." He set it beside her and gave her some space. Laya worked the salve into her skin. A man with a sister. That could mean something, or it could mean nothing at all. "What's her name?" she asked, testing him. "The one on the ranch." "Emma," Caleb said, laying out dried meat and coffee grounds. "She is 28, widow. She helps run the place, and I pay her proper wages." There it was, proper wages. He said it so casually, as if it wasn't the very line between being a person and being property. "Why are you telling me all this?" Laya asked. Caleb finally looked at her, the firelight dancing across his face. "Because you're wondering what I bought you for, and I'm telling you it's not what you think." The silence that followed was heavy. "I bought your contract," he said plainly. "That means you don't owe Crowley a thing. It doesn't mean you owe me. Laya paused. That's not how it works. That's how I work. You spent $400 on me. I did, he agreed. And nobody spends that kind of money without expecting something back. Caleb tossed a piece of wood into the fire. He took his time before he spoke. When I was 16, my mother died. She worked herself into an early grave at a boarding house. The owner claimed she owed him money, that the law was on his side. By the time I understood what he'd done, it was too late. He met Laya's eyes. I can't change what happened to my mother, but I can sure change what's happening to you. Why? She whispered. Because I can, he said simply. And because if I didn't, I'd be no better than men like Crowley. Laya wanted to believe him, but 3 years of misery had taught her that hope was a dangerous thing. So what happens now? She asked. Now you eat. Tomorrow we ride for my ranch. When we get there, you'll have choices. He handed her a plate of food. You can work for real wages. You can stay till you figure out your next move. Or you can leave right away. I'll give you supplies and money to get to Santa Fe. It's your choice. That's all. Laya searched his face for the trick. No contract? None. What if I just rob you and run? A small, tired smile touched Caleb's lips for the first time. Then I'd be out a horse and some cash, but you'd be free. Seems like a fair trade to me. You're either the dumbest man I've ever met or the best one, Laya said. For the first time in years, she felt a knot in her chest loosen. It wasn't trust, not yet, but it was the quiet ground where trust might one day grow. She ate like a starving animal, not caring how she looked. Hunger was honest. As darkness fell, the desert sky filled with more stars than she could count. She had forgotten how beautiful the world could be. Tell me about your ranch, she said, her voice quiet. So he did. He talked about 2,000 acres of high desert against the mountains. He talked about his cattle and the 6 good men on his crew. He talked about his sister Emma, who managed the books and could handle herself just fine. He told her about the big cattle drive they were planning and all the dangers that came with it. That's why you needed that stallion, Laya said, understanding now, the one he traded for her. To lead the herd. Yep, Caleb said. And now you don't have him. Nope. We'll figure something else out. We always do. Laya looked at this man who had traded his future for hers and felt something inside her shift. I can handle horses, she said suddenly, and I'm good with cattle. I grew up on a farm. He didn't push for details. He just nodded. The offer stands. You do whatever you want when we get to the ranch. I'll stay, Laya said, her pride easier to show than her gratitude. I'll work for wages and pay you back what you spent. You don't have to. I know, she said, meeting his gaze across the fire. I want to. $400 is a debt. I don't like owing folks. It's not a debt if it was a gift. It's a debt if I say it is. Caleb considered her for a long moment, then gave a slow nod. All right, we'll work it out. Fair wages, fair terms. You're a free person, Laya. You make your own choices. He kept telling her she had a choice to walk away. It was the 3rd or 4th time, making it feel normal, not like some grand gift. Freedom, he seemed to know, was not a gift to be given. It was a right that had been stolen. After they ate, Caleb prepared for the night. He showed her how to bank the fire, keeping the heat without the light. Then he unrolled 2 bedrolls, placing one near the warmth for her. He took the other one and placed it a respectable distance away. He told her to holler if she needed anything, then turned over and was asleep in minutes. Laya lay awake for a long while, feeling the ghost of rope burns on her wrists and watching the stars. For the first time in 3 long years, nobody owned her. Tonight, she was just Laya Hart, scared and uncertain, but not property. That thought was enough to finally let her sleep. Dawn arrived cold and pale. Laya woke to the smell of coffee and Caleb's low voice talking to his horse. The ropes were gone. The sky was open. It was not a dream. She sat up and folded the bedroll with care. Caleb nodded from where he was saddling his horse. "The coffee is hot," he said. "Help yourself." Laya poured a cup. The brew was strong and it tasted like salvation. "We have about a 2-day ride ahead of us," Caleb told her. He patted his horse's shoulder. "Have you ridden much before?" "Every day until I was 17, Laya said. "My father raised horses. I could ride before I could write. What happened at 17? The question was simple, but the answer was heavy. "My father died," she said. "We lost the farm to debt within 6 months. My mother remarried a man who just wanted a housekeeper. I left and went to Kansas City to find work. Her laugh had no humor in it. I ran out of money at Crowley's trading post. He offered me a job, said he would pay fair. I was 19 and desperate enough to sign papers I could not read." "You were not stupid," Caleb said quietly. "You were desperate." "There is a difference." "Is there?" Laya asked. "Desperation means you did not have good choices," Caleb explained, kicking dirt over the fire. "You did what you had to do to survive." Laya had always thought of it as a failure. Hearing him call it survival felt strange, almost dangerous. They packed in silence. Caleb helped her mount behind him, and soon they were moving south again, into the desert morning. As the hours passed, Laya felt herself start to relax, just a little. When they stopped for water at midday, she asked him, "How did you end up with a ranch?" He told her he came west after his mother died. He bought land nobody else wanted. It was too dry, too rocky, and too far from anything. "I'm just too stubborn to quit," he said. "And your sister?" "Emma showed up 4 years ago," he said, with a black eye and a busted rib. "Her husband had been hitting her. When he died, his family tried to keep her, saying she was a burden they had taken care of. She walked out in the middle of the night and rode 200 miles to find me." Laya took that in. "Did you go back for her things?" "I went back and had a talk with his brothers," Caleb said, his eyes turning cold. "A talk about what happens to men who think women are property. By the end of it, they understood. I am not proud of violence," he told her, meeting her gaze, "but I am not ashamed of protecting people who need it. There is a difference between cruelty and consequence." Laya thought about Crowley and the men who never faced any consequences. "Good," she said. As they rode on, the land began to change. Rocks gave way to grass. "That is the start of my land," Caleb said, pointing to a distant fence line. "Another hour and we will be home." Laya's stomach tightened. She was good at reading new people, a skill she learned at Crowley's. But these were Caleb's people, his sister, his crew. They would have questions. They would have judgments. "What will you tell them?" she asked. Caleb was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "The truth. That I met someone who needed help, and I helped. That you will work for wages if you choose to stay." His voice was certain. "And if anyone has a problem with it, they can take it up with me. I only hire people who know how to treat others with basic decency. If they cannot manage that, they do not belong on my land." Laya wanted to believe it could be that simple. The sun was dipping low as they rode up to the ranch. It was a practical spread of low-slung buildings, built tough against the Texas wind. The main house was adobe and wood, flanked by 2 bunkhouses and a barn. As Caleb helped Laya from her horse, 3 men came out from the barn to watch. She stood there feeling filthy and worn out in her tattered dress. The oldest one, a man about 50 with knowing eyes, nodded at Caleb. "Didn't figure you'd be back so soon, boss. Or with company." "Plans changed, Miguel," Caleb said, keeping a protective hand near Laya. "This is Laya Hart. She'll be working here if she wants. Laya, this is my foreman, Miguel Reyes." Miguel's eyes sized up Laya in an instant, taking in the bandages and the way she held herself, ready to bolt. A flicker of understanding crossed his weathered face. "Ma'am," he said, tipping his hat. The other 2, a smiling youngster named Jack and a quiet, scarred man named Samuel, gave polite nods. "Where's Emma?" Caleb asked. "In the house, wrestling with the books," Miguel answered. "All right, get Laya settled, will you? She needs a good wash and a real meal." Laya glanced at Caleb, her only anchor in this strange new place. He gave her a reassuring nod. "I will find you after." She followed Miguel toward the house, feeling the curious eyes of the men on her back. She knew she had to earn her keep, to prove she was more than just a stray Caleb had brought home. That thought sparked an old, stubborn fire inside her. Miguel led her into a warm kitchen that smelled of fresh bread. A woman with Caleb's same direct gaze looked up. She had dark hair tied back in a braid. "Emma," Miguel said. "Someone for you to meet." Emma's eyes swept over Laya, missing nothing. "You are the reason he came back without a horse," Emma said. It was not a question. "Yes, ma'am." "Do not call me ma'am. I am 28, not 80, Emma replied, her voice firm but not unkind. "Are you running from something or to something?" Laya met her gaze. "Both, I think." A small smile touched Emma's lips. "Fair enough. Let us get you cleaned up." An hour later, Laya felt almost human again. She had washed away 3 years of dirt and shame in a small wash house, and now wore a clean, simple cotton dress. Emma carefully tended to the rope burns on Laya's wrists with salve and fresh bandages. "How long?" she asked quietly. "Hours, sometimes longer," Laya replied. Emma's jaw tightened, but she said nothing more. Seated at the kitchen table with a plate of chicken and bread, Emma got right to the point. "Caleb spent $400 on you, instead of a horse we badly need. That tells me the situation was bad enough he could not just walk away." "It was bad," Laya confirmed. "Bad enough that staying there meant dying a slow death." Emma nodded slowly, her expression softening. "That sounds exactly like my brother. So, what can you do?" "I can ride, rope, and handle cattle. I can cook and mend clothes. I am not afraid of long hours or hard work." "Can you shoot?" Emma asked. "Not well, but I am willing to learn." Just then, Caleb walked in, looking relieved to see them getting along. "Looks like you two have things sorted out," he said. "She is staying," Emma announced. "She will be working for wages and learning how to shoot." Emma later showed Laya to a small private room. "The door locks from the inside," she said. "The rules here are simple. Do your share of the work, and if anyone gives you trouble, you tell me or Caleb right away." Laya felt a wave of gratitude. "Thank you," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "Do not thank us yet," Caleb said with a small grin. "Wait until after you survive your first roundup." Emma added, "You have the look of a survivor. People like that know how to bend without breaking." Alone in her room, Laya sat on the bed and allowed herself a small glimmer of hope. The room he gave her was small and plain, but the door had a lock that worked. It was the most beautiful place she had ever seen. She lay down, clean and fed and safe, and stared at the ceiling. For the first time in 3 long years, nobody owned her. Sleep came fast and deep. She woke in the morning not to fear, but to sunlight and the smell of coffee. She woke up free, and she was learning that freedom was a skill, one she had to practice until it felt natural again. It would be hard work, but she would learn. Paying off a debt was simple. It had terms. It could be done. But freedom, she was realizing, was absolutely priceless. The next morning, Laya dressed in clothes borrowed from a woman named Emma. The pants were too long and the shirt was too big, but they were clean and strong. She looked in the mirror and saw a woman who was thinner and harder, but there was a light in her eyes that had not been there before. She found Emma in the kitchen, already making biscuits. The older woman looked her over and nodded. "Good. You look like you can work. Coffee is hot. Breakfast is in 10 minutes. The crew will stare. Pay them no mind." Emma punched the dough. "They are decent men, but still men. Curious and foolish. Do not let it get to you." "I will not," Laya promised. Emma told her, "Just eat and listen for now. Caleb is calling a meeting after breakfast to explain everything to them." "First, we need to find your place," Emma said, her hands moving fast. "You truly aim to work cattle?" When Laya confirmed, Emma nodded. "Then you'll ride with Miguel's crew. He's a straight shooter, so you pull your weight and you'll do just fine." Just then, Caleb walked in looking serious. He stood beside Leia and spoke low. "You ready for this? Now you listen. If any man says one word out of line, you come to me. I know you can handle yourself, but you should not have to on this ranch. Remember, your past is your own business. You do not owe anybody a story." Leia felt a knot in her throat, a strange new feeling of being shielded, not owned. The sound of boots on the porch broke her thoughts as the men came in for breakfast. An old, scowling cook in his 60s named Cookie just grunted at her. The rest of the crew sat down, their faces a mix of curiosity and caution. Leia ate quietly, watching them. She understood their wariness. The boss had brought home a stranger with no explanation. After the meal, Caleb stood up, and the room went completely silent. Despite any friendliness, it was clear who was in charge. "I went to Crowley's for a horse," Caleb said, straight to the point. "That is not what happened. I found Miss Hart in a bad situation, so I bought out her contract." He looked at Leia, then back at his men. "She is here to work for wages, same as the rest of you. She is not my property, and her past is off limits. She is crew. Treat her with respect. Any questions?" The silence felt heavy until Miguel, the foreman, spoke up. "No problem, boss. We can always use another good hand. If she says she can work cattle, that is good enough for me." "Good," Caleb said. "Miguel, she is with your crew. Show her the ropes." As Leia followed Miguel to the barn, he spoke quietly. "Caleb called it indenture. That is a nice way of saying something real ugly." Leia did not flinch. "I was tricked into a contract I could not read." Miguel nodded. "Sounds like Caleb to step in. He has a habit of doing what is right, even when it costs him. So, can you really work cattle?" "I grew up on a horse," she said. "I know my way around stock, and I learn quick." Miguel looked her over. "Well, let us just see about that." Miguel handed her a saddle. "The mare in the third stall. Tack her up." Leia moved with a quiet confidence that came from years of practice. She gentled the horse first, then saddled her with slow, careful hands, checking every strap. When she led the mare out, Miguel gave a slight nod. "You did not rush. That is good." In the corral, Leia rode smoothly, her confidence growing with every step. The horse moved like they were old partners. "You'll do," Miguel said when she finished. "Can you rope?" "Enough to get the job done," she replied. For the next hour, she proved it, her movements sure and capable. Though her wrists ached, Leia had proven she was no greenhorn. "All right," Miguel finally said. "You have got the basics down cold. We will start you slow while your hands heal. Any questions?" "Just one," Leia said. "What are the wages?" A look of respect crossed Miguel's face. $25 a month plus room and board. No tricks, no deductions. Honest pay for honest work." $25. Real money. It was the price of her freedom, and it was a price she could finally afford to pay. "That works for me," she said, her voice steady. "Good," Miguel called to a younger hand. "Jack, take her to the south fence." Have you ever felt so broken that you had to prove you were even worth the air you breathe? That was Leia. Out on the Texas plains, she threw herself into fixing fence like a woman possessed. Every splinter, every cut from the wire was a price she was willing to pay. She was proving to the ranch boss, Jack, but mostly to herself, that she belonged. By noon, her hands were bleeding right through the bandages. Jack noticed, his voice kind. "You don't have to kill yourself on the first day." Leia looked out at the shimmering heat. "I'm not hurt," she said. "I'm healing." Jack asked her if things were bad where she came from. She could have lied, but his eyes were honest. So she was too. This story is about a woman who refused to be owned. It's a reminder that true freedom is something you have to claim for yourself. If you believe in the power of the human spirit, keep listening. "It was bad enough," she told Jack, "that I would have died there. Bad enough that when your boss Caleb offered a way out, I took it thinking it was just another trap." She met his gaze. "Now I'm here, earning wages, and trying to remember what it feels like to make my own choices." Jack nodded slowly. Well, I'm glad you're here. This place needs more folks who ain't afraid of hard work. Back at the ranch, the evening chores had a rhythm. It was a good kind of tired, the kind you earn, not the kind that's beaten into you. Dinner was a loud, friendly affair around a long table. Leia stayed quiet, learning the faces and the feel of a life she never thought she'd have. It was a fragile piece, but it was real. Later, washing dishes, the cook Emma cornered her. Jack said you nearly worked yourself sick, Leia admitted. I'm the one questioning if I belong here. I have to prove it to myself. Emma understood. Pace yourself, she warned. I learned the hard way that you don't have to earn survival. You already earned it by getting out. Leia was stunned. How long did it take you to believe that? About 6 months, Emma said with a knowing smile. And another 6 before I stopped waiting for it all to fall apart. That night, Leia lay in her small bed, listening to the safe sounds of the ranch settling down. For the first time in forever, she felt the quiet hum of hope. Life here had its own rhythm, one that did not run on cruelty. Leia's wrists still ached and her muscles were sore from good, honest work. It was the kind of pain that came from building a life, not being broken by one. She was healing, bit by bit. She still woke up startled sometimes, the memory of ropes on her skin. But looking back, she could see how far she had come from the woman at Crowley's post. She learned the ranch and its crew. Miguel was fair and firm. Jack was a friend to everyone. Even silent Samuel warmed up to her. She watched Caleb the most, not with suspicion, but with a growing curiosity. He ran his ranch with a steady hand. He noticed a lame horse or a troubled man. Most importantly, he kept his word. She had real wages and the freedom to leave. It was a world away from everything she had ever known. 3 weeks in, Miguel pulled her aside. His look was serious. I have been watching you, he said. You are a reliable hand. You do not make the same mistake twice. We are getting ready for the cattle drive north. 300 head, 6 weeks on the trail to Colorado. It is dangerous work. People can get hurt or worse. I need to know if you are in all the way. Lives depend on it. Leia looked at the map at all the points marked in red for danger. This was her test. This was the moment she proved she belonged. I want to go, she said. I am part of this crew. If the crew goes, I go. Miguel gave her a long, hard look, then nodded. All right, but I am going to train you harder than anyone. Be ready. Leia felt a nervous excitement. She was no longer just surviving. She was part of something bigger now. That evening, she told Caleb. He looked up from the saddle he was fixing. Miguel is putting me on the drive. Caleb nodded. He told me. You do not have to go. It is going to be tough. I am going, she said, her voice firm. I know. I am coming on the drive too, he said. Not because I think you need protecting, but because I do not trust everyone else we will meet out there. Having the boss around tends to keep folks civil. Emma is going too, he added with a small smile. She would not miss it. Leia, Miguel's impressed, and that man ain't easy to please. Emma's taken a shine to you. The whole crew has accepted you. You ought to be proud. I'm just doing my job. You're doing more than that. Now listen, I know you're set on paying back that $400 from Crowley's, but you are worth more to this ranch than money. If you left tomorrow, I'd still call it a good deal. As far as I'm concerned, that debt is paid. What you do with your wages is your own business. Her throat felt tight. I need to pay it for myself. I need to know I can do it. Then you pay it back, he said, his steady gaze holding hers. But you do it because you choose to, not because you owe me. You're free, Leia. Free to stay, free to go. Don't you ever forget that. She gave a quick nod, not trusting her voice, and walked out of that barn before the feelings could spill over. Outside, the sun was setting over the mountains in a blaze of gold and red. The air smelled of sage. For the first time in what felt like forever, Leia stood on Caleb Rohr's ranch, not as property, but as a person. The future felt as big and wide as the Texas sky. It was terrifying. It was wonderful, and she was ready. Whatever came next, she would meet it on her own 2 feet. That's what free people did. The next morning, Miguel's promise of hard work came due. He pulled her aside for what he called intensive training, which meant 12-hour days learning everything that could go wrong on a cattle drive. They started at a rain-swollen creek. The water was running fast and cold. The cattle bellowed, refusing to cross. "This is where men die," Miguel said flatly. "Cattle panic. Riders get pulled under. The current is a liar. I need to know you won't freeze up when things get ugly. I won't. Prove it. Take 3 head across." Laya cut 3 steers from the herd. They fought her the whole way, their eyes rolling white with fear. She kept her mare calm, her voice low. The first steer finally went in, and the others followed. She urged her horse in after them, the current grabbing hard at its legs. The freezing water rose past her stirrups to her knees. One steer tried turning back, but she blocked it, using her horse to push it forward. When she reached the far bank, her heart was pounding, and she was soaked clean through, but all 3 steers were safe. Miguel just nodded when she rode back. "Good. You kept your head. Now do it 10 more times." They worked that crossing until her legs were numb and her arms shook with exhaustion. "Better," Miguel said. "Not perfect, but better. Always respect the water. Understand?" "Yes." "Good." Now let's talk about night watch. The days that followed were just as hard. Miguel drilled her on how to read a herd, how to doctor sick animals, how to find her way by the stars, and how to handle a spooked horse. He made her practice roping until her wrist ached and her shoulders burned. Emma joined them for weapons training. "The goal isn't to be the fastest gun," Emma told her. "The goal is to be confident. Most fellas won't test you if they think you know your business." Emma's face turned to stone. "And if they do become a problem, you make sure they regret it, but only once. Caleb and Miguel will back you up. Any man who crosses that line here is done, fired, blacklisted, and lucky to leave in one piece." The crew saw her training, and their respect grew. Jack started calling her Greenhorn with affection. Others offered quiet tips. It was a silent kind of acceptance, showing she belonged. Caleb watched it all from a distance. Leia often caught him observing from a barn doorway or sitting his horse on a far-off hill. She wondered if he regretted his decision, if the $400 still seemed worth it. She got her answer 2 weeks into her training when a rider appeared on the horizon. He was not one of theirs. Miguel saw him first, and his whole body went tense. "Company," he said quietly. "Everyone stay calm and let me handle this." The rider was a hard-looking man in his 40s, with a pistol that looked like it had been used before. He stopped 20 yards away, his eyes sweeping over the crew before fixing on Leia. "I'm looking for Caleb Rohr," he called out. "Boss is at the main house," Miguel said. "What's your business?" "It's a personal matter, about a woman he bought from Silas Crowley 6 weeks back." The man's gaze was locked on Leia. "That would be you, I'm guessing." Leia's stomach turned to ice. She kept her hands steady on the reins. "I work here," Leia said. "I am not owned by anyone." "See, that is where we have a disagreement." The man pulled papers from his vest. "Name is Garrett. I am a bounty agent. These documents say Crowley sold your contract to a man named Hobbs. Mr. Hobbs paid good money, and he wants his property returned." "That is impossible," Leia said, the words barely a whisper. "Caleb bought out my contract completely." The bounty agent's name was Garrett. He claimed a man named Hobbs had papers buying her from Crowley. He says he would rather settle this quiet. "You come with me, and nobody gets hurt." "The hell she will," Jack snapped. "I am just doing my job," Garrett said, his voice bored. "She comes easy, or I come back with a marshal and court orders." "There is a third choice," Miguel said, his voice low. "You get off our land right now." "My name," Leia cut in, "is Leia Hart, and I am not going anywhere." Just then, Samuel's rifle was up and aimed right at the bounty agent's chest. "Do not," Samuel said. Hoofbeats sounded, and Caleb rode in hard with Emma right behind him. He pulled his horse up between his crew and the agent. "State your business." Caleb's voice was cold as ice. Garrett told his story and handed over the papers. Caleb read them, then passed them to Emma. "These papers are garbage," Caleb said. "Crowley sold her contract to me first. That is fraud. That is for a court to decide, Garrett replied smoothly. She still comes with me today. Over my dead body, Caleb said. But peace in the West is a fickle thing. A man named Garrett rode in days later, a stack of papers in his hand, claiming Leia belonged to his boss, Hobbs. He said her contract was sold. Caleb, the ranch owner, stepped forward, calm as a Texas morning. His hand rested near his gun. This woman is under my protection. She works here by her own choice, and she ain't going anywhere. Garrett sneered, talking about resources and how expensive this would get. Then it'll be expensive, Caleb said, his voice like iron. Now get off my property before I decide you're trespassing with intent to kidnap. And that's something I handle personally. The threat was plain as day. Garrett, outnumbered 6-1, saw he'd lost this round. He tipped his hat. I'll be back. After he left, the reality set in. Emma looked over the papers. These might be legal enough for a territorial court, she said grimly. The law out here often favored property rights, and a judge might rule that Leia was a disputed asset. That meant she'd be locked away in custody for months, waiting for two men to argue over who owned her. Leia felt a cold dread creep into her heart. She had escaped one cage only to be threatened with another, this one made of laws and lawyers. Her freedom, it turned out, was still just a negotiation between powerful men. Her choice didn't matter. Her voice didn't count. No, Leia said, the word cutting through the worried conversation. Everyone turned to her. No, she repeated, her voice stronger now. I will not be a disputed asset. I am done being something men buy and sell. She looked at Caleb. You have been good to me, but I won't put your ranch at risk. I'll disappear tonight, where no one can find me. The hell you will, Emma snapped. Running makes you look guilty, like you're property that can be stolen. You stay and you fight. But how could she fight a system that didn't even see her as a person? Then Caleb had an idea. A wild, unexpected plan that just might work. A real surprise. You are a free person, and you get to make your own choices. I have no fight in me. I have no money for lawyers and no time for a courtroom. A judge will just side with Hobbs and his paperwork, and I will be right back in chains. Except this time I will know what freedom feels like. Her voice broke. I cannot go back. I would rather die a free woman than live as property again. The silence was thick. Everyone there understood some things were worse than death. Being owned was one of them. You are not running, and you are not dying, Caleb said, his voice firm. First, I am getting a lawyer in town, a man who owes me. We will find out what Garrett's papers really mean. Second, you are not to be alone. Someone from this crew is with you until this is over. And third, we are burning those contracts. Emma stared at him. We are burning every last piece of paper that says anyone owns Leia. That is destroying evidence, Emma said. It will make it worse. Caleb shook his head. Only if it goes to court. With no papers, maybe Hobbs just gives up. It was a risk. But it was better than leaving Leia locked up while the courts decided her fate. Leia felt the panic in her chest begin to ease. You would do that? Destroy proof of what you paid? I bought your freedom, not your service, Caleb said, his gaze steady. If burning those papers keeps you free, then they are better as ash. I will not let you go back to being property. I will do whatever it takes. Even if you lose everything? She asked. Even then, he said simply. Your freedom matters more than land or money. If standing up for you means I lose it all, then I will learn to live with less. Your good conscience is going to make us broke one day, Emma said, sounding both proud and frustrated. Probably, Caleb agreed. But I will sleep well. Emma, ride with me to town. We need to catch Prescott before he closes. He turned to the others. Miguel, when you get back, put someone with Leia at all times. Jack and Samuel, you stay with her for now. No one is alone until we know what we are up against. With nods all around, Caleb and Emma galloped off. Laya stood in the pasture, feeling protected but also smothered. "Well," Jack said, "the cattle do not care about legal troubles. Let us get back to it." When Miguel returned, he said Garrett was gone but would likely come back with more men. That evening, Miguel laid it out plain. "We are taking this seriously. Laya is to have an escort of at least 2 people day and night. We are doubling the night watch. See any strangers, you sound the alarm." The crew agreed without hesitation. The mood was tense, but they were a solid unit. Laya sat through it all, feeling like a heavy burden. Later, in the kitchen, she found herself alone with Cookie. He was banking the stove, his movements practiced and quiet. "I do not like drama," he said, not looking at her. "But I like men who think they own other folks even less. So if you need anything, you just ask me." It was the most he had ever said to her. Laya's throat felt tight. "Thank you. Do not thank me. Just do not make me regret this." He finally turned, his expression serious. "You are tougher than you seem, girl. But tough is not always enough. You have to accept that you are worth protecting. These people have decided you are. Do not insult them by fighting it." He left her alone with the dying fire. She thought of Caleb riding to town, spending money he did not have for her. She thought of Emma right beside him, and Miguel changing the whole crew's schedule to keep her safe. Even Cookie was offering his own quiet support. She had been working to pay back $400. But how could anyone ever repay this? There was no number for this kind of loyalty, this willingness to risk everything for a stranger. It was not about a debt. It was about community. It was about people deciding they were responsible for one another. She had never known anything like it. Her own family had never been this strong, and here it was, real and solid, offered with no strings attached. All she had to do was accept it. She had to accept that she was worth fighting for. But her past had taught her that trust was a dangerous thing. It taught her that every kindness had a price. Breaking those hard-learned lessons would take time. But standing there in that quiet kitchen, knowing a whole crew of people had put her safety first, something inside her began to shift. It was not trust, not yet, but it was the willingness to try. It was terrifying, but it was the only path that did not end with her running forever or back in chains. So she would stay. She would let them protect her. She would accept their loyalty and try to be worthy of it. And if Garrett came back with the law, she would face it with people who understood the difference between owning someone and protecting them. In a place where the law was slow, maybe the only real safety was finding people who would burn the papers before they let you be taken. Caleb was willing. The whole crew was willing. They understood that a person cannot be owned no matter what some document said. That was worth more than $400. It was worth everything. For the first time since leaving that trading post, Leia allowed herself to believe she might have found a true home. It was a place where her freedom was not up for debate and her dignity was a given. The danger was still there, but this place was hers, and she would fight for it. Caleb and Emma returned 3 hours later. The news from the lawyer was not good, but it was not the end of the world either. As they gathered in the house, Cookie brewed coffee strong enough to float a horseshoe in. Caleb delivered the lawyer's grim news. The contracts were a legal nightmare. He said a judge could rule either way, and while they fought it out in court, Leia would be locked up by the territory. Emma declared that was not an option. Caleb agreed, then looked straight at Leia with the only other plan they had. "We burn the contracts, all of them. Then you marry a man from this ranch. Under territorial law, a husband's claim cancels out any other. It is the quickest way to make Hobbs's claim disappear." "No," Leia said, her voice firm. "I did not escape one owner just to be handed to another." She insisted that marriage was not freedom, but simply a different kind of chain. A husband would legally own everything she was and everything she earned. Emma promised it would be different here, but Leia cut her off. She knew that a man's promises meant nothing when the law was on his side. She would not put her future in another man's hands again. Caleb asked her what she wanted to do, reminding her that running or hiding were not real options. Caleb was losing his patience. "We need a real plan before Garrett comes back looking for a fight." Miguel spoke up then, his voice low and serious. "There is another way," he said. "It is not clean, but it will work. We can make it so Hobbs does not want her anymore. We damage the property. You make an indentured servant look like they are unable to work, and they become worthless. A few scars, something to make her look like damaged goods, and Hobbs will drop his claim fast." The room fell into a horrified silence. "Absolutely not," Caleb said, his voice like stone. "We are not marking her like cattle." Miguel argued that every solution required Laya to give something up, be it her freedom or her body. As they argued over her fate, Laya felt a familiar rage building inside. They were good people trying to help, but they were still deciding her life for her. "Stop!" she finally screamed, the word tearing out of her with enough force to stun the room into silence. When they all stared, she gave them her own solution. "I will marry Caleb." Before anyone could argue, Leia explained her choice. She hated the idea of marriage, but it was better than being dragged away by Hobbs. If she had to marry for protection, it would be the man who had already proven he valued her freedom. She looked right at Caleb. "This is not about love," she said. "This is a business deal. We get married on paper, which gives me time to find a real solution for my future. We can end it later, but for now, this is the only path that keeps me free." Caleb looked at her for a long moment, his face unreadable. "Are you certain?" he asked. "I am certain that I have no better choices," she replied. "Then I will do it," Caleb said simply. He promised they would ride to town the next day and make it legal. He also swore they would write up their own papers, guaranteeing her financial independence and the right to leave any time. Emma warned her brother that a marriage was not so easily undone out here, that he was tying himself to a stranger. Caleb said he understood the risk, but Laya needed protection now, not later. He promised Laya he would ask for nothing from her, but would give her the time she needed to be truly free. Laya fought back tears. This was a compromise born of desperation, not a moment for emotion. Miguel nodded, saying a quick wedding was the smartest move. He sent men to stand guard, warning them to be on the lookout for Garrett. They planned for another hour, deciding who would run the ranch and how they would handle Garrett's return. Later, alone in the quiet kitchen, Laya sat with a cup of tea she did not want. In less than 12 hours, she would be married to a man she barely knew. It was not freedom, but for now, it was survival, hoping this person with power over her would be a decent man. The door swung open and Caleb walked in, carrying 2 mugs. He placed one down for her, the coffee just how she liked it, sweet enough to kill the bitterness. He sat across from her. "You can still back out of this," he said plainly. "We can find another way." "What other way, Caleb? Run until they catch me? Hide until they find me? Those are just slower ways of losing everything." She held the warm mug in her hands. "This is my choice to make, even if it is a bad one." Caleb's voice was low but steady. "Listen to me. When we get married tomorrow, nothing is going to change. You are still my employee. You still earn a wage. You are free to leave whenever you want. This is only on paper to keep the law off your back. I will not make demands. Do you understand? I understand what you are promising, but promises and reality are 2 different things. The law will give you power over me. If you decide to be less than decent, I will have no way to stop you. Then you will just have to trust that I will not. I am not very good at trust, I know that, but I am asking you to try. The other option is a life on the run, never putting down roots. That is not a real life, Laya. That is just surviving. And you deserve more than that." She looked at him from across the table. This man had turned his whole life upside down for a stranger. His face was worn from the sun and his hands were rough from work. He was not a fancy man with smooth words, but he was solid. He was the kind of man who did what he said he would do, no matter the cost. "Why?" she finally asked. "Why are you doing all of this for me?" And do not tell me it is just the right thing to do. I need to know what you get out of it, besides a whole mess of trouble. Caleb took a moment before he answered. My mother died because a man legally owned her and worked her into an early grave. My own sister barely got away from a husband who thought marriage was about possession. I have spent my life building a place where people are treated like people, not property. Seeing you at that trading post, treated like an animal while men just watched, was a picture of everything I have fought against. Walking away from you would have meant my whole life was a lie. He looked straight into her eyes. So what I get is proof that I am the man I claim to be. Is that selfish? It might be, but it is the honest truth. Laya thought about his words. There was pride in his answer, but it was an honest pride. All right, she said. We will get married tomorrow. We will sign the papers and make it official. Then we will figure out the rest. Agreed. Caleb stood up and took their mugs. Get some sleep. We ride out at dawn. Sleep was hard to find that night. Laya listened to the ranch grow quiet, thinking about the morning. Marriage had always meant chains and losing yourself. Now it might mean freedom. She must have fallen asleep because the next thing she knew, Emma was knocking softly at her door. Laya borrowed Emma's best dress, a simple but clean blue cotton. Emma carefully pinned up Laya's hair. You do not have to be scared, Emma said gently. Caleb can be a lot of things, but he is not a cruel man. If he says this marriage is just for protection, then that is all it will be. I know. But it still feels strange. Well, strange is a whole lot better than being owned, Emma said, finishing with the last pin. There. Now you look more like a bride and less like someone heading to the gallows. They met Caleb in the barn. He was already getting the horses ready. He had cleaned up and put on a decent shirt. He looked respectable. The ride to town took 3 long hours as the sun came up. They did not say much, each person lost in their own thoughts. Laya tried to quiet her beating heart, reminding herself this was just for now. The town was little more than a dusty main street. The courthouse was a plain adobe building that looked older than the town itself. Inside, a clerk with ink on his fingers listened to their story with a suspicious look. You want to get married right now? Right now, Caleb said. Is Judge Morrison in? He is in, but he's going to ask some hard questions. You two do not exactly look happy. We are here on our own, Caleb replied. We just need it done fast. The clerk sighed, clearly not wanting any part of their drama. Wait here. I will see if the judge will do it. Judge Morrison was a tired-looking man in his 60s who had seen it all. He looked from Caleb to Leia, sizing them up. Is this legal trouble or love trouble? He asked them straight out. Legal, Caleb answered. This woman is being hunted by a man who claims to own her. Marriage is the only way to protect her, and you are just volunteering to help? I do not believe a person should be another person's property, Caleb said, and this is the fastest way to make her safe under the law. The judge grunted. At least you are honest that it is not for love. He turned to Laya. Are you doing this because you want to, miss? I am. Her voice was surprisingly strong. Do you understand that getting married in this territory gives your husband legal control over you? I understand. And you are still willing? I am. The judge stared at her for a second, then nodded. All right. Let us get this over with. Emma, you are the witness. I am. The ceremony in his dusty office was short and plain. The judge read the legal words without any feeling. He skipped right over the parts about love and honor. Do you, Caleb Rohr, take this woman as your legal wife? I do. Do you, Laya Hart, take this man as your legal husband? Laya's throat felt tight. The little room felt like it was closing in. But Emma was right there beside her, and Caleb looked calm and sure. She thought about the men hunting her and the courts that would send her back to them. She thought about a life spent running. And she thought about how Caleb had never once lied to her or broken a promise. I do, she said. Then by the power of the Arizona Territory, you are married. Congratulations, that'll be $5. Caleb paid the fee, and they filed the paperwork. The whole thing was over in less than an hour. When they stepped back into the sunlight, Leah was legally Leah Roar. The same laws that could have made her a slave had now set her free. She was saved from one kind of ownership by choosing another, but this time she was tied to a man who would rather fight the whole world than let anyone drag her away. They rode back to the ranch, quiet, each thinking about what they had just done. 3 days later, Garrett returned with a marshal, looking smug. But Caleb just handed him a fresh piece of paper. It was a marriage certificate. Leah Hart no longer existed. She was now Leah Rourke, Caleb's wife. Under territorial law, a legal marriage overrode any previous indenture contract. The marshal read the documents and shrugged. The marriage was valid. Garrett could contest it, but proving it was a fraud would take years and a fortune. He was beat. Leah had won. It wasn't a fairy tale wedding, but a declaration of freedom. She wasn't property. She was a wife, a partner, and a free woman on the Rourke ranch. And sometimes the smartest move isn't to run from the rules, but to use them to build a brand new life. The man, Garrett, left with a sour look on his face, knowing he had lost. A married woman was just too much trouble. That evening, Caleb found Leah on the porch as the sun went down. He sat near her, keeping a respectful distance. "He is gone," Caleb said simply. "You are safe now." Leah watched the colors fade from the sky. "I know," she said. "Thank you." "You do not have to thank me." "Yes, I do," she insisted, turning to him. "You married a complete stranger just to protect her. That is not something a person forgets." Caleb just sat there for a long moment, taking it all in. "So what happens now?" Leah asked. "We are married on paper, but that is about it." Caleb figured they would just make it up as they went. Keep working together, treat each other right, and see what developed. No pressure, no demands. That was a Caleb answer, practical and honest. It made Leah smile. They lived in the same house, but in separate rooms. It felt more honest than any relationship she had ever known. The drive north was just as hard as Miguel said it would be. They pushed 300 head of cattle through storms and fought off rustlers. It was dangerous, exhausting work. Leah proved herself time and again. She earned the respect of the crew through her actions, not because she was the boss's wife. When they reached the railhead 6 weeks later, she knew she belonged. On the ride home, Caleb handed Leah a leather pouch heavy with coins. "Your wages," he said. She stared at more money than she had ever held at once. Honest money, earned through honest work. She told him it was too much, but he insisted she had earned it. With this, she could finally pay back the $400 from Crowley. Caleb told her again that she did not owe him a thing, but for Leah, paying it back meant she was truly free. Riding alongside Caleb, Leah realized she was not the same woman he had found months ago. She asked him if he regretted their arrangement. He took his time to answer, which meant he was telling the truth. He said he only regretted the circumstances that forced her hand. But did he regret marrying her? Not for a second. He told her she had made the ranch a better place and that the whole crew looked up to her. "So who am I?" she asked. Caleb called her stubborn, proud, and fiercely loyal, someone he would want on his side in a fight, and someone he would like to get to know better when there was no fight. Leah's heart skipped a beat. She said she would like that too. Caleb gave her a real smile and said they would make the time. They rode back to the ranch as the sun set, with a hot meal waiting and the feeling that this was just the beginning. Leah was bone-tired and trail-sore after 6 weeks in the saddle, but it was a good kind of tired. She found Caleb in the barn, his hands moving with gentle skill on a lame mare. The quiet comfort between them did not need any words. "Caleb," she began, her voice low, "I have been thinking about this marriage." He kept his eyes on the horse. "What about it?" "It started as a business deal. I know that. A way to keep me safe. But it feels like more now. I'm not just staying because I have to. I am choosing to be here every single day." He finally looked up, his gaze steady and clear. "You choosing to stay. That means more than you will ever know." She nodded. "I am still going to pay back that $400, and I still need my own room for a while. I do not trust people easily." I understand, he said, standing and wiping dust from his jeans. And you do not owe me any gratitude, Laya. You have brought more value to this ranch than money ever could. You prove to every man here that a woman belongs, not because I said so, but because you earned your place. You reminded me that taking a chance on people is always worth it. A quiet understanding settled between them in the lamplit barn. Thank you, Caleb, she said softly. For everything. As she reached the door, she turned back. And I was not being completely honest a minute ago. I am not just grateful. For the first time in a very long time, I am happy. She left him there and found Emma in the kitchen. Emma looked up from her account books with a knowing grin. It took you too long enough to start talking about this marriage being more than just paperwork. Laya managed a small smile. We are getting there, slowly. Slow is good, Emma said. It is how you build things that last. Do you really think this can work? Laya asked, pouring herself a cup of coffee. Emma leaned back, her expression certain. Relationships work when people choose to be in them. The beginning does not matter nearly as much as the day-to-day. You and Caleb, you choose to be fair and honest with each other. That is a better start than most couples get. Laya looked around the quiet kitchen. She had started this journey being sold like livestock in the Arizona sun. Now she was here, safe, with family, and with money she had honestly earned. The change was so huge it hardly felt real. But this life was real, and it was hers. Her future was finally a wide-open space full of possibility, not just a daily struggle for survival. Caleb had given her protection, Emma had offered friendship, and the crew had shown her respect. But the greatest gift was the one she gave herself, the choice to stay, to build, and to risk trusting another person again. Choosing your own freedom after it has been taken from you is a powerful act. It was how she was becoming whole again, one decision at a time. She was learning with hope now, not with fear. And she was learning it alongside a partner who understood that freedom is not something to be given, but something to be fiercely protected. That knowledge made all the difference in the world. Her scars were proof that she had survived the worst that life could throw at her. But her choices, right here on this ranch, proved she was doing more than just surviving. For the first time in forever, Laya Hart was truly living.